All right, y'all. I got some interesting stuff to talk about in the world of pro wrestling, and I wanted to do this. So, with MJF now being sidelined and his, pipe bomb promo on Tony Khan not going over well with the office and the higher ups in AEW, and then with what happened with Sasha Banks and her tag partner, what if AEW and WWE could work out a trade of contracts where MJF went to the WWE, but AEW got Sasha Banks and Naomi back or over there, and then it's a win-win for everybody. I would love to see Sasha Banks in AEW. I think that she wasn't fully able to be herself in WWE, and with MJF, he was able to be himself in AEW at any cost, and I think he would be a great addition to the WWE roster. That's the first thing I wanted to talk about. Propose that trade idea, and maybe that could actually make this wrestling thing that's going on interesting again. Because right now the indies are where it's at, the conventions are where it's at, and the stuff on TV is still very lackluster. However, the podcasts are kicking ass right now in the pro wrestling world. And I want to give a special shout out to Jim Cornette, special shout out to Conan and the Disco Inferno. And I want to raise some awareness about what's going on with podcasts in other worlds of entertainment. The stuff going on with Delray Richardson and Reggie Wright at Death Row is fucking crazy to watch, and it really shows you what times that we're living in. These guys are going toe to toe right now, and it's like they're having a better match on their podcasts than what's going on wrestling television right now. So I want to just hype up some of these feuds that have been going on. Jim Cornette has been annihilating the Jackson brothers in AEW, and he's been annihilating Kenny Omega, who may or may not have a career-ending injury, from what I hear. So that Cornette is just relentless, and he's just, at this point, he's winning. He's made so much money shitting all over the modern product of AEW and not agreeing with the product of WWE, which I think that Jim Cornette is the closest thing that we have right now as the people, And I wonder, because Cornette was the same guy who took down Trump in the height of all the confusion with, right before the election. So I just want to really just let Jim Cornette know, man, that like we really appreciate him at the Pro Wrestling Archives for just, doing what needs to be done. It's not about what you want to do, it's about what needs to be done. I also want to give a shout out to Eric Bischoff. I'm enjoying his podcast, and he's going a little slow with it lately. And he's been doing all these reviews, which have not really been the funnest things to listen to. But overall, he has absolutely survived running the gauntlet in pro wrestling back in the 90's and now. So that means Bischoff has something. With the Vince McMahon scandal, I don't even know what to say about that. But there's a lot of things coming to light about what's going on with WWE and behind the scenes. And I still think to this day that Chris Benoit did not kill his family. I think that there's some kind of setup going on there. And I think that when some of his own friends talk about it, I know that they probably are the closest ones to knowing the truth about what really happened. But at the same time, I don't think that betraying their friend when there's still so much cloud of mystery over the whole situation, I don't think that's the answer. And I'm not dissing anybody. I'm just saying I don't think that that's the answer. I watched a crazy decoding show on it yesterday, and they were talking about how the neighbors have links to some of the people who have been fucking with Chris Benoit, and why Chris Benoit left WCW when he did with Perry Saturn and all those guys. And then, one of those guys that was fucking with those guys committed suicide, in 2012 or 2013, I think it was. So, there's a lot of a lot of cloudiness about the whole situation. I don't have the answer, but I still think that people need to keep investigating what happened with Benoit, and maybe the police need to reopen that investigation because it just doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem like that's something he would do or that's what he had done. I've let go of the whole situation and let go of the energy of it all, and it just doesn't seem like Benoit did that. Yeah. Some other things that I want to talk about is this whole old school versus new school thing going on in pro wrestling. It's similar with hip hop right now. You know, the guys 8 Ball and MJG and Gilly the Kid. You know, it's that whole thing of the old school, the old guard versus the new school, the new guard. And I think in pro wrestling, the new guard is losing bad because they're dropping the ball. And I think in hip hop, it's a similar thing. Not dissing anybody. I'm not trying to make this like that. But it just seems like the old records from the 80s and 90s are way better. And maybe that has to do with the platform. Maybe that has to do with the current state of society. Whatever it is, the guys from Generation X are the winners in all this. You know, whether it be pro wrestling or whether it be hip hop. You know, and I think it's going to be a similar outcome when it comes to movies. But it seems like things are moving at different paces. Sports as well. You know, it seems like with sports, the Generation X guys are the real deal. I love watching Gary Payton interviews and some of his highlight roles and shit like that. And I don't know. I just think that the Generation X guys have something, man. I think it really does come down to talent and having the it factor and having a huge roster of, you know, huge roster of talent, you know, that works well together. You know, I think that the new stuff, I mean, really, out of all the new guys, it seems like Cody Rhodes has stepped up. It seems like I would put CM Punk in this category, you know, just because he's, you know, mid-2000s on or whatever. I would put him in that category. I think CM Punk is pretty talented, pretty good, you know, new school guy. Even though he's getting older. The big cutoff with all this stuff is Generation Y. And the cutoff is not necessarily in hip-hop, but it does seem like it is in pro wrestling. The thing with the pro wrestling stuff is that the second generation, third generation lineage is real. And that's what I think everybody should be focusing on when it comes to the new school guys in pro wrestling. You know, whether it be, you know, the Samoan Dynasty, whether it be Pillman Jr., whether it be Charlotte Flair. I mean, even Sasha Banks, she's related to Snoop Dogg. So there's a lineage there. You know, I just, some of these newer guys, you know, like Cornette's right. You know, when it comes to some of these guys. You know, with Kenny Omega, I see his talent. You know, so I'm not going to go completely Cornette on him. I see that he's more talented than the Jacksons, you know, the Young Bucks. But I don't know. Some of these other guys are falling off too. Like Jeff Hardy, man, he needs to take some time off, man, and get his life together. Maybe Matt Hardy too. I don't know. You know, but yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about pro wrestling, and I want to big up the conventions going on. The wrestling conventions are where it's at, and yeah, I just want to give mad props to all the Generation X workers that were there and put it down hard. You know, I've met a lot of them, and they're really cool people, and I think that goes a long way too. You know, I don't want to meet somebody and then be a dick in real life. And mostly everybody that I've run into has been cool. The only exception so far that gave a friend of mine a hard time who had done a lot of work in the wrestling business, my friend Alan, the only guy who gave us a hard time was Big Vito. And I was there when Big Vito got over in ECW. I was in the row where people started to chant, you know, Skull Von Crush. They were doing the... And they were doing it as a joke to fuck with the guy. And he got over because of it. And then signed by WCW. So, Big Vito, if you're out there, I just want to let you know, like, I know that your whole career is a joke. All right? So, just know that. And when you see us around, you know, walk the other way, man. Is there anything else I want to say? We ran into Haku recently at a convention, and Haku is so humble, man. And everybody talks about how he's the toughest guy in the business. And when somebody's a real tough guy, they don't have to act tough. And that's Haku, man. You know, just a laid-back individual and big as shit. And you could tell you don't want to fuck with this guy. But at the same time, mild-mannered, cool, gentle, laid-back. And that's pretty fucking cool, man. So that concludes this episode of the Good Old Fashioned Philly Wrestling Podcast. My name's Rick Reinhardt, and I just want to raise awareness that, you know, some of these guys that are doing this podcast stuff when it comes to hip hop are just as good at doing the pro wrestling thing as the next. So I just wanted to raise awareness about that. Maybe these guys can get some tips or something like that, you know, on how to do this shit. All right, peace.